All right, everyone. We are going to have Kelly Marie Kerr on. Let me see. I'm so excited to dive deeper into this. I know so many of you have probably heard me talk about the Sacred Secretion a million times. So let's go ahead and pull her up. Aloha, welcome. Hi.
That was so easy. I was really
Yeah, right? Is this their first live?
Yeah,
Oh,
literally.
how exciting.
Yeah.
Oh
I've
my
done
goodness.
it on YouTube before, but never on Instagram. So
Yeah.
it just suddenly dawned on me, like, oh my gosh, like what buttons do I need to push?
Yeah. I know. I know. I'm so excited for this because I feel like the when I found you, gosh, how long has it been since we've been following each other? Like a year?
Yeah, I published the book in March of 2019, so yeah,
Oh.
quite a while.
That was, yeah, right around that time. And, my partner, Chris, actually found you. And I had been receiving so many things about the waters in the body and how it connects to the cerebral spinal fluid. But it was like your book was the science that, put it all together. And I know a lot of people on here might not know your story. So if you kind of want to let them in on who you are and a little bit about your book.
Okay, yeah, so my book is called The Goddesign, Secrets of the Mind, Body and Soul. Really felt led by the Holy Spirit or the divine in me, the divine principle, the omnipresent power, whatever you want to call it. Like I just was so, it was such a divine appointment for me to write this book because it was such an organic, natural process for me. As I was going through, I'd had this incredible experience myself where I'd just been following Christianity actually very practically, not, just turning up at church and kind of going through the motions, but actually like I had known for a really long time, like there's something missing here, and I was just on this mission to get to God and to know God and to really understand and grasp and have a personal relationship with the spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept having like these really profound dreams. I was doing things like the Daniel fast, which is in the book of Daniel, and it's basically like a really high alkaline natural basic diet where you're not letting any toxins in whatsoever. And that's when I really started, the Bible says that Daniel had clarity in all of his dreams and visions. I mean, that was literally like what happened to me. And I was like keeping a journal and just writing everything down that came through, and some of it seemed like utter nonsense and other parts of it felt like resonant and more like, oh, there's something here. And then on the 7th of July, so the 7th of the 7th, I woke up like 7 times through that night and wrote down 7 dreams. And I didn't actually realize until later, like a few months later, when I was going through my journal, like how many 7s there were in that sequence. And one of them was that I saw like a figure that was actually very ethereal, not like a physical person, but more like a kind of glitch in like a TV screen type thing. That I knew in my heart was Jeremiah from the Bible, even though I have no idea what Jeremiah looks like or if he's just a symbol, for others, I know to be now. But he was crying and I felt so much deep empathy. And it was like he was saying to me, nobody understands. And I was like, what don't you understand? And I was just like hugging and comforting him. And that was just so profound for me. Like for days afterwards, I felt like I could feel that spirit with me. And I was like, I didn't even want to tell anyone particularly, because all of the people that were around me in those moments of my life weren't like, you know, this way inclined particularly at all. Like there are a few like hardcore friends that have been, you know, with me all the way through. So that's great. But, you know, it was such an inward process that I kind of didn't want to share anything until I really knew and understood what it all meant. And then one of like a clairaudible experience I had. So I sometimes hear words or sounds like in my sleep as well. And it was Matthew verse 6:33. And it actually came through in a few parts. I wasn't sure at first. And it was, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. And yeah, I read that scripture so many times, and I'd heard it so many times throughout my life, through church. You know, even the song, like I used to sing the song in primary school, seek ye first the kingdom of God. And I never, you know, now the dots all connect like so beautifully, and it's just this wonderful tapestry, and it's like, I get it. But, you know, like, what's going to be added to me? Like, I don't understand, you know. I am seeking you. Like, all I do is seek you. Like, what am I missing here? And then one night I just literally felt like vibrations going up through my body. And as I closed my eyes, I could just see this blue oil rising. And it was just... I just can't even articulate how incredible it was. It just felt like everything changed in that moment, and I still didn't even really know what was happening or what it meant. Like, I was deeply into yoga. I've been a dancer like pretty much all my life, and as I stopped dancing, I just went more into yoga to just keep up with like physical conditioning and stuff. So like my yoga practice was just evolving and changing the more I came to understand like different styles and different practices. So, you know, there was some Kundalini and some like yin yoga in there, and all of these things. Again, like I didn't really realize exactly how much they were affecting like my biochemistry and my physiology, and like really raising my vibration. And it wasn't until one day I just sat down, and I think I had a really tiring day. I was like, I'm just not going to do anything. And I just looked at my phone, and it was like, oh, these are the recommended videos on YouTube on an email. And one of them was like Jim Kerr, who I've always loved. And it was the John St. Julian video with the little George Carey clip in it from the Norm Macdonald show, talking about the Sacred Secretion and the relation to the Bible. And I was like, this is what happened to me. Like, it just, in that moment, I just knew, like, this is the experience that I had. Thank you. Like, finally, I know what is going on with me. Because I didn't even want to tell my husband at one point, because I thought, he's just going to think I'm losing it. Like, you know. So, yeah, that was a major penny drop moment, or I was like, aha, like literally, thank goodness. Like, and then from there, every time I picked up the Bible, or every time I thought about something that had happened that hadn't made sense before, it was just click, 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 click. Like, wow. I, prior to that, a moment where when I was reading Revelations, I was like seeing all these lights like come through in different colors, and I was starting to understand like the relation to the chakras. So the Bible had already been starting to reveal itself to me in this really vivid way.
Wow.
Yeah, having, you know, somebody else like in that moment. Like I'd been following John because he's from England. Like he kept coming up, like, you know, as someone to follow or whatever. And what he was doing in Tanzania was so incredible anyway, like with the charity and helping all these like unfortunate children, that, you know, it was just such a blessing to witness somebody doing God's work in such a practical way. And then the fact that he happened to be the same person that like tied everything in for me together as well was just, you know, such
Wow.
a blessing.
That's so beautiful, because something that Huna Flash, I'm not sure if you follow him too, but I take his Healers of the First Light, and we're learning about grid work. And something that I woke up to as well, it was the Sacred Secretion. And I was getting it was right after my healing, tapping into my sexual trauma with mushrooms, psilocybin, and I kind of was going through psychosis, but I was getting all of these drops and I was writing all over my walls, and I kept getting the liquid in the spine, liquid in the spine. And I wrote out every single vertebrae, the 33 vertebrae. And I was like, and my partner wasn't my partner yet. He was my friend at the time. And like, I had friends witnessing me just losing my mind, but I didn't know who to talk to about it. And I didn't know what I was uncovering until I found on YouTube Santos Bonacci. And I was like, this is what's coming through. So it's interesting how it like came into your realm, and like we had that reflection of somebody else who had received it, but then it almost like unlocked it for us to go even more, because that validation was so like like gave me confidence.
Definitely. Confidence went from like here to here. I mean, I you know, been in the acting world and things before, and like my friend and I had like set up a production company like quite a few years ago, where we were like writing scripts and trying to pitch them to, you know, like very mainstream avenues. And it was really frustrating that we would always get to a certain point and then it would be like a no. And I was like quite frustrated with God, because I was like, well, hold on, you're supposed to be, you know, on my side, giving me all my, answering all my prayers. Like, what's going on? But actually, like now, it makes so much sense, because I just wouldn't want to perpetuate any of those narratives in any way, shape, or form. And I would almost want to just detach myself fully from anything that isn't just going to nurture and help people, like to guide them towards the truth, so that they, you know, so that we can all be on the same vibration of truth together, which is what really take us into this like 666 activation period.
So can you go into, for those who don't know what the Sacred Secretion is, can you go into that a little bit and describe that?
Yeah, okay. So the sacred secretion is kind of a modern term actually for something that, you know, has been in our DNA, in our biology since, you know, the dawn of mankind. It goes by many different names in all different cultures around the world. It's also referred to as the Merkabah, body of light, the Tibetan rainbow body. In Christianity, it's the resurrection body. It's also the wedding at Cana, the wedding, the alchemical lead being transmuted into gold. There's literally so many different labels that this phenomenon, like the one truth that we should all really know, it should be our birthright to have this information, you know, so that we can actually treat ourselves as we deserve to be treated, and actually take the steps you know, to live long, healthy lives in peace and joy, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and this process, it's to do with the primordial energy at the base of the spine. So it's also known as Kundalini energy, which just means primordial energy. It has nothing to do with evil serpents or anything like that.
Yeah.
The serpent is just a symbol that is used to like as something to liken it to, because you know it's like the Pingala and the Ida Nadis, like the DNA, the double helix. That's what it resembles. So it's just a metaphor, like nothing to be afraid of. And yeah, so we basically have a chance once a month when the moon is in our sun sign, because I mean we have like these 7 chakras, but I like to think of it as 2 like main ones, where it's like the lunar plexus of like the mind and the head, where all the main waters are, and then the solar plexus, the sun plexus, in the stomach, which is the seat of our soul, which is where all the heat and radiation and willpower is.
Yeah.
Like you're imagining like this soma, this lunar energy, like secreting downward every month when those polarized energies unite, because the cooling effect of the moon is going into the sun and like actually balancing everything for your personal DNA. So when that particular energy, it's a subtle form of energy, falls down your spine, it will usually terminate in like the lower regions, because of either anger, which acidifies you, because as soon as you're angry, your body produces epinephrine and cortisol, which instantly makes you acidic. Like people think of being acidic as just being a product of like eating McDonald's or drinking beer or whatever, but it's so much more than that. It's mental, it's emotional. You know, that's why the Bible tells us, you know, to love like unconditionally, because I mean it's not telling us to like suffer fools, to like, you know, be naive and let people get away with treating us like rubbish or anything like that. Obviously we still have to let our yes be yes and our no be no, and not tolerate rubbish, but at the same time, like it's the way we deal with it, it's the way we process it, keep like looking after ourselves within that moment, so that it doesn't actually like take our chemical biologies out of the place where they should be, and to keep our vibration like neutral and high, where we're like in this balanced state of pH, body, mind and spirit.
Yeah.
Everything can do what it wants to do, what it's naturally programmed, you know, to do.
Homeostasis.
Homeostasis, exactly. So yeah, assuming, you know, you can stay in this peace loving vibration, and you know the physical side obviously does count towards it as well. You can't just eat crap and, you know, drink every day. Like you need to look after your physical temple just as much as you do your mental and emotional and spiritual temple. And it's funny because those vibrations of love are really the key to this, because I think it was Tesla or one of those guys said about, if you want the keys to the universe, think about everything in terms of like vibration and frequency. So once like love starts percolating through you, like, you know, you can feel it when you hug someone that you really love, like how wonderful it makes you feel.
Yeah.
And when that starts to like percolate, and your energy changes and your vibration like starts to glow inside you, like it starts to like lift the cerebrospinal fluid like upwards, literally like a thermometer. Like when the temperature in the thermometer raises, the little red whatever
Yeah.
is inside like rises. Like it's a very similar thing.
Wow.
You can also like envision it as when there's a really cool guy, you should check him out, everyone, on YouTube, called Scientific Lee. You haven't heard of him?
Oh.
Some of his stuff is like a little bit deep and like whew, like it's quite technical, but there's some stuff where he's like comparing like the Kundalini energy and stuff in like terms of like electromagnetic frequencies, and the way that you can actually visualize what's happening internally is really awesome. Hi, Simba. Where was I at? Sorry, keep going on tangent.
It's so good. I'm so happy you're explaining this, because this is really like through the water lens why I talk so much about the waters rising, and that we're rising as one tide, because that love, that consciousness, I always say our attitude is our altitude. That attitude that we're holding, our frequency is like, okay, where are we raising to? And I know that to some that seems linear, but it's true. The waters rise north, just like the Nile. And oh my goodness, it's so good. So, and
Yes.
this is that rapture. This is that rising, literally and metaphysically, the waters within and without. So as this liquid rises, can you explain, like, because the purification is important, of course, and we'll give you guys a little bit of tools at the end to, like, embody, but could you explain how the waters rise and how they go back through?
Yeah, so it's basically like your parasympathetic and your sympathetic nervous systems, like, and they go hand in hand with the automatic and the voluntary. So if you think of the voluntary system along with the parasympathetic, it's like, I'm choosing to talk to you. Like, I know I'm talking to you. I know, like, I can raise my hand and everything else. But like the sympathetic and the, actually I've said that the wrong way around, parasympathetic and the autonomic. So like the things that I just do without even thinking about, like, I'm not thinking about my heartbeat, yet my subconscious is having to do that for me, like there is a life inside me that is making that happen. So like as these energies like start to percolate and rise, like those two nervous systems balance, and that's what pushes the frequency together, so that you're actually like more cerebrospinal fluid than would usually be in your central canal converges, and so you kind of get this like overflow effect.
Wow.
Why in certain books, like in George Carey's works, he always talks about the seeping over. And if you read about craniosacral therapy, like they talk about the meninges being bathed in CSF. Like that's what it is. You're basically like renewing yourself. Like you're kind of, it's literally living water it up. That's literally the best way to describe it.
Oh, that pressure, that it's like that pressure, and it rises, and that, oh my goodness, just that concept in itself of what we've been going through, and I take it to the universal level a lot. I'm like, that's what we're collectively going through. We're collectively going through this purge, not just like once a month. And it's interesting because, like, as you're describing this, I can see it in our bodies. Like, you can feel it. You can feel the truth in what you're saying, because you're like, oh, yeah, I know that feeling. So good.
It's like it's just incredible. And I sometimes I feel disappointed, like when I, especially this year's like been such a challenge, I think, for everybody to like stay grounded, stay focused, remember the truth, remember that we're supported, remember that we're loved, remember that you know, this is a projection of like something that has been designed to happen, and live through it and do our best and stay positive, because literally, you know, thoughts are things.
Yeah.
So it's yeah, like there's moments where I sort of fall off the wagon, so to speak, and
Yeah.
then like, oh, quick, back on, remind myself, you know, of this beautiful thing, and how, you know, I mean, I used to like, I've always loved reading, and like I used to have to memorize scripts and stuff. But now, like, my capacity to withhold information is so different what it used to be, that it like it that was one person, and now like I'm another person, which I
Yeah.
think is the true meaning of being born again, you know?
Oh yeah. Yeah, and that's the story of Christ. This is why it relates to the Bible, you guys. There, this connection. And you know, I was talking to my partner, and I've been cultivating a post about why I resonate with Christians. And you know, my growing up, like I have been told that like you're such a good Christian, because I was Christian following the basic Bible of what I thought it was. And I even went to Catholic school for a year and studied the Bible, and to see how these similarities are already here, I feel like this lens for a lot of people to know that this is what Christ is within, knowing Christ within, is a like story about your cerebral spinal fluid, allows people to really see the connection with the codes that are already here, right?
Yeah,
And it's like our differences then all of a sudden become so similar because this story is in so many different things, you know?
yeah. And it's like you're not trying to take away from any of the literal concepts, but, you know, also to know and recognize the fact that there are so many layers of, you know, the cosmos, that, you know, we can just see these reflections like rippling throughout, like literally from a cellular level, where you've got the proton and the neutron and the electron coming together as a trinity in that like microscope, like, you know, so small, like who knows like how they even see it, you know,
Yeah.
like the sun and the moon, and, you know, in the sky, like without the moon, you know, we would die from the sun's power. So like there has to be that balance, like in every step. So it's like when you think about this part of you, like your head and your brain, thinking of that as heaven, and then thinking about your body as being earth, you know, the heart is literally an anagram for earth. So it's like, you know, you can see the connection, and you can see the transmutation in the throat, which is where the reeds of Cana are, the vocal cords, the reeds. So it's like you're literally taking the Christ lunar germ seed from earth to heaven, you know? So
Yeah. And could you explain a little bit about the science of that, of what, you know, the like DMT and how that relates to all of it?
yeah, so the physical expression like of the sacred secretion, a tryptophan transmutation. So tryptophan is like one of the basic amino acids, which there are 22 of, same amount of letters of the Hebrew alphabet, like those building blocks of life. Um,
And
and
it's 11:22 today.
no, I loved it. When you asked me to do this today, I was like, yeah, this is the right day.
I didn't even, yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, so tryptophan, it's in like stuff like walnuts is a really good source. And actually, I recently have been drinking lots of banana tea, which is broad for tryptophan. You literally take a banana, chop it into about 5 pieces, put it in a pan of boiling water for like 10 minutes. Just pour the hot water into a cup, discard the bananas, and it actually, like the water, the boiling of the water literally oxidizes the tryptophan out of the bananas.
Wow.
And it's such a nice like bedtime drink.
Wow.
You like sleep really deeply and just be really relaxed. It's lovely. So yeah, the tryptophan, sorry, another tangent, is the basic foundation, I guess you would say. And the tryptophan is in the cerebrospinal fluid. It's also in the blood, but cerebrospinal fluid and blood are very closely related. Like cerebrospinal fluid actually starts out as blood, and then choroid plexus is what transmutes it into cerebrospinal fluid. So it's taking all the best parts. So, and also the blood is magnetic and the cerebrospinal fluid is electric. So again, you see like a layer of that polarity, like in our physiology. Tryptophan then changes to serotonin, which, I mean, without serotonin, we would be like so heartbroken and depressed, and like, yeah, how we would get over things. Like without that, just that one beautiful hormone is like, it's all just so perfectly designed, you know?
Yeah.
And from serotonin, like if you don't become acidic in a way, that's when you have the opportunity to transmute the serotonin, which at nighttime will become the melatonin, or in states of darkness. Like if you're in a good circadian rhythm, like you would even start to secrete melatonin at a certain time of day, because your body will know like this is the time you always start to relax and go to sleep or whatever. And then the melatonin, like in those high states of excitement, starts to transform into mexamine, which is an antioxidant, it's antimicrobial, it's antibacterial. Mexamine is the reason why the sacred secretion is so healing, and why it, you know, it changes like a lot of diseases and things. And then you've got pinoline, which again, like pinoline is literally named after the pineal, with that PIN at the beginning, because this is where it happens. So basically, it's kind of a two-step thing. So after it's gone through the throat, which is where the crucifixion is, the excitement actually stimulates the pituitary first. And the pituitary, which is the mother gland, the Mary gland, secretes the oxytocin and the vasopressin. Like they're the love hormones, the milky, like oozy, like yummy, like gooey hormones that, you know, just make you feel so warm and comforted. And it's those chemicals that tell the pineal to upgrade melatonin, because it's in that place ready to do that. So those hormones, those female hormones, are exciting that male gland.
Wow.
And that's like, then that's creating like an electromagnetic arch, like over the two endocrine glands in the brain, which is also, you can see that physically with the fornax. And there's some amazing gifs that you can just literally Google, like fornax gift, and you can see the arch of like electricity going across the fornax. It's beautiful. And when that happens, though, the secretions from the pineal and the pituitary going into the third ventricle together, DMT, another one, luciferin, like there's about 5 or 6, they're all in my book all together. I mean, the main ones are probably DMT and luciferin and pinoline. Luciferin is what's like responsible for the visions that you get in this state, because it's actually a bioluminescence, so it's almost like it lights up that optic chiasma, like behind the eye. Have you seen, you know, in The Lion King, where Simba has to go back? My cat's named after Simba, by the way. you have Simba goes back and he sees like his dad in that pool of water. That's, you know, like this same thing. So it's like as the luciferin lights up the waters, you can see what's happening in the subconscious, like in literal images.
This is the water lens.
Yeah.
Because you can see your reflection. And isn't Luciferin, is it Luciferin? A lot of people that represents, and Lucifer being the morning star, right? The
Yeah.
morning star being the North Star. The
Yeah.
North Star being rising the waters north. Wow.
Exactly. And Lucifer is known as being one of the adversaries, like biblically, but it's so, I mean, to me, I think that's something that may have kind of been deliberately up, you know, like let's demonize Lucifer to help to stop or to slow, because this awakening can never be stopped, but like yeah, because to demonize something that's so beautiful is such a sad thing. And the word Lucifer isn't even in the first translations of the Bible. Like it doesn't actually appear until the Latin Vulgate version. So I mean, you've got the Hebrew, the Greek before them, and then the Vulgate version, so the Latin version, took the word phosphorus from the Greek version and translated phosphorus as Lucifer. But phosphorus is an actual physical element. Phosphorus is in everything. It's a cell salt, you know. It's like literally it all the different derivatives of phosphate are just, I mean, it's crazy. Like everywhere.
Wow.
To take an actual element like phosphorus and give it a name like Lucifer to make it appear as a person is just like, did they not know? I like optimistic with people, but I'm like, come on.
Yeah. And I mean, the reflection of that, like it just goes so deep too. I forget which one phosphorus is, or phosphate. That came through a lot. So could you speak on the cell salts a little bit more in salvation? Because I just
Yes.
thought in that drop, I was like, saliva, salvation. And when you said it yesterday, I was like, what? You know about that? And I was like, oh my gosh, wait.
Yeah, I mean, saliva, you know, if in a really literal way, saliva is the salvation of the body, because without saliva, we can't digest food, you know. And if we can't digest food and eliminate toxins and like turn the minerals into flesh and blood, then, you know, and game over really. But like in a deeper way, the word salvation comes from the word salt, and salt comes from the word cells, and myself, my cells. So it's like, you know, everything is made up of these cells. Even the Christ lunar germ seed is the cell of creation. You know, it's the germ cell. It's this kind of like the starting point of everything. Like in the generative system, when it comes down from the pituitary, like on that once a month cycle, that's what would usually be turned into physical sperm or ovum, and it's actually phosphorus that unites with it to give it that vivifying power. So it's like within the saliva, if our saliva, our salivation, our salvation, our savior is pH neutral, you know, that's reflecting into the blood and reflecting into the cerebrospinal fluid. That's why we should eat slowly. And we should recognize, like, if something leaves a bit of an acidic taste in our mouth afterwards, and we're like, have I just eaten a battery, like that, like weird flavor, like, don't eat it again. Like, our
Yeah.
body's telling us, but
Mm.
we need to be vigilant, slow things down, and just recognize, give our bodies a chance to talk to us, because they're trying to tell us something at all times.
Yeah, and I always say, um, the way you eat is the way you make love. Allow yourself to get wet, allow your mouth to literally salivate because you're going in too fast and you're not allowing your body to salivate and allow the enzymes to break down. The saliva helps so much with that. And that relates to what we were saying in the beginning of this of love has this like watery secretion. Men get hard, their blood flow. Women get wet. I mean, it's wow. Go ahead.
No, it's true, it's true. I never thought of that. I was like, it's like the foreplay of eating. I'm never going to forget that now.
Yeah, right. I know my partner, he just like was an athlete, so he eats really fast, and I just joke all the time. I'm like, the way you eat is the way you make love. Yeah.
um,
Mhm.
yeah, so saliva. So this it links in with the salt. The saliva links in with the 12 cell salts, which are linked to the zodiac. I really recommend Santos Bonacci for the astronomy, astrological side of things.
Mhm.
Like, that's not really like my forte,
Mhm.
but I do know that like the 12 cell salts of the body are the basic building blocks of life, and that everything actually comes from some kind of deficiency of, either one of those salts or too much. It really is like about balance. So when these salts, like the number one salt which is in the brain again is caliphos, which is potassium phosphate. So, there again you've got phosphorus. So it's like, if you have these salts in balance. I mean, the George Carey book, The 12 Zodiacal Cell Salts, explains it all really well, actually. I recommend that book.
Yeah.
Um, and then I don't know what the other 11 are off the top of my head. I know that you've got natrum sulfate, which is basically sodium sulfate. But
Mhm.
what they are is essentially molecules that are like oxidized in our body. So the breath is everything. And, esoterically, like a lot of times, like breath and water are synonymous. Like the air is the water and the water is the air. If you take like ice, water, and clouds, and like what's in between, the clouds and the land, like as an example, so you can visualize it, like all of those forms have water in them. Whether or not the water is visible or not has nothing to do with it. Like, we know that it's still there.
Yeah.
So when we take it in, like it's hydrating us. But like a big part of air is nitrate. We said, like, it's so well known that when we inhale, like, we're taking in oxygen, and we say we need oxygen, like, and that is true. But a bigger percentage of the air that we take in is actually nitrogen, which is the fire of life.
Yes.
It's actually the caliphos, the potassium phosphate in the brain that like balances the nitrogen within that we take in through our breath. So, it's, and again, that links again down to pH levels and water balance, and being able to raise this thermostat up to like.
You know, it's so interesting having this water lens because everything you're saying is like I keep popping out to this like zoomed out lens of like California. And I do a lot of grid work, so I'm always connecting with the grids and asking the waters and plasma like where, what is what. And when you said that, I was like, California, I didn't know why. I thought I was going to move to Kauai for a while. I thought I was going to move to Oregon. I was like, okay, I'm wherever you want me right now. And something kept pulling me back to California. And I knew that doing swimming in this water pilgrimage that I went on, it was like I went from the East Coast to the West Coast, and we went from south to north on this side, and then on the other side we went from north to south, and the currents flow opposite. So I was doing this like interesting grid work, and to me, what California, what the caliph, within what you're saying, that is like the fire within our planet. I mean, Hollywood, actors, like California, there's a source here that the entire world follows. So if it's like there's okay, I got chills.
Flora and fauna are the seed and the spirit. So it's like California is the fauna, the flora. So it's like it's a very spiritual place. And also in Hinduism, the god Kali,
Oh yes,
she is like she's the one who like is the fire. She is the main principle of like the Shakti energy and the equilibrium of like keeping the evil at bay and keeping that very like important equilibrium on a balance.
And it's so interesting because honestly, politics, whatever, but living here and witnessing what's going on with the state and how it's, back in lockdown and everything because it's a democratic state, I'm like, oh my goodness, my entire pilgrimage was about the life force and for the children and human trafficking. So the child stands for the inner chi, which is the life force, and the life force is water to me, which is the fire, which is why some people are like, what? How can water be fire? But I'm like, water is fire because it's the life force. It's one and the same.
Yeah.
Ooh, wow. Somebody asked, do you guys have any intel on December 21st? 2020. This is the intel right here. The what she's sharing with you guys, what's going on in the body is what's going on without.
Yeah, and on that note, like I was just reading, because the timing thing about the sacred secretion is what I get asked the most questions on. Like, but why is it when the moon is in the sun? And this, I do have a video like dedicated to it on YouTube. And there is a chapter on it in the book, but I'm actually working on doing another video that makes it even clearer. And during my studies, I found this amazing book by Harold Percival called Thinking in Destiny. And he actually explains that the winter solstice, Christmas, is it's the best time for us to do this process. Like, this is the time of year when the commercial world is trying to stuff us full of chocolate and wine and goodness knows
alcohol.
What energy, like, is the right time, like, for all of us to be raising the Christ,
Purifying. The opposite.
The gold, frankincense, and myrrh are literally the gold, the frankincense, and the myrrh are the lunar and solar energy that make the chrism.
Wow. I'm so glad we're talking about this in November right now. I'm sleeping at my friend's house with a Christmas tree in front of me. I'm like, it's so early, but now I know why we're sharing this so early.
Yes.
I want to share something because I know Claudette is on here too. When I started, I just had this memory. When I started to track when the moon was in my sun sign, I was Googling it and I was getting it off of this like website. And now I actually track it with the Skyview app. So I wanted to ask you that. How do you track it?
I actually love this app called Dulux Moon. Because it's got a switch on it that you can actually flick over from tropical to sidereal. And like in the Vedic texts, in the ancient texts, it's always the sidereal that they're going by, which is actually the position not on the horizon, but the position of the actual like celestial bodies in the sky, rather than just based off of like, you know, angles and stuff that humans have kind of later like put into place. I'll be honest with you, I think that there is something a little bit askew in where we're at now in the cycle, because I don't think, like, we're so precise that it's 365 days in a year. You know, 13 lunar cycles, 12 solar months. But it's not that precise. So I think what's happened over time is like there's a slight overlap, because when I had my very first experience that was like really intense, and I just felt all the vibrations and clear images and everything else. Once I then found out what the sacred secretion was, and then started to link it back through the Bible and all my other studies, and I looked at the time in my diary where I'd written down what had happened, the moon was in the sidereal. I'm a Taurus, so it was in the sidereal Taurus, but it wasn't in the tropical Taurus. And so that's what like led me, and I didn't know too much about tropical and sidereal. Luckily, like my dad, another divine synchronicity, my father was really into astrology, and he had like told me that there were two different systems when I was quite young.
Oh, that's so nice. I'm gonna get my charger, but continue.
Yeah, so I knew that they existed, but I didn't really know, you know, what they meant or why the difference was important. And that was what, in my book, I ended up writing, just give way either side of what the calendars are telling you. Because, you know, unless you use something like Sky Tracker that can actually, like, you know, show you physically where they are, I think you just need to, like, everyone just needs to be a little bit aware that there, you know, could be a bit of a stopgap either side, and just to allow for that. And also, you know, like if you're in line with the divine, rhymes, you know, you do actually start to just feel different and see synchronicities and have vivid dreams at all times throughout the month. It's not just limited to this window, but that is the time you definitely do not want to be releasing your sacred seed. Like the phosphorus in the sperm, like, or the seminal fluids of the female, like you don't want to let that go. And I mean, to be honest, like when I had that first experience, like I probably had unknowingly not actually had any sex or released any of my fluids for probably a good 7 months or so, unknowingly, because I just had my son, and the birth that I had was quite difficult, and you know, I was recovering and everything else, and when you've got a newborn baby, you just really sexually inclined. So that was just a bit of a thing in itself. But you know, that is
yeah, it's interesting because so I was celibate for a good like 10 months as well. I went through just my own healing. But it's interesting that you're bringing this view, and I love the way you share it with that neutral lens, because that has been a really big question, and why Claudette, aka Claudette on here, she's right here, and Huna Flash. It's like we're all working off of the, like, not off of the Gregorian system. We're being called to work in it's like slightly off. And Richard Rudd says that we were born at 88 degrees instead of 90 degrees. And so that like little tweak, it's not that we are throwing everything that we know away. It's just allowing us to be more fluid and to see a bigger lens and integrate what we see as well, more than what we already knew. And I feel like it's an expansion of the consciousness that allows us to access the depth of that and be able to track that ourselves, and to go through this process within ourselves during Christmas. And last Christmas is when it was like, I had been sharing about water consciousness like for so long, and I was just always this woo woo whatever, and I get it, some people still think I'm that way. and you know, right around Christmas time, I was getting the Christmas mirror cool. It's the mirror cool. The mirror that we're able to see ourselves, and the cerebral spinal fluid is known as the I am presence. If you just look it up on YouTube, there's amazing a scientist who studies it. So I was like, the I am, okay. I'm this water, okay. Water is the reflection, okay. I'm like, whoa, I can see the reflection. I'm seeing a mirror. And so this miracle drop just came through, and it was like we got a wave of people coming into our movement. We got a wave of people wanting to know about the water consciousness, and that was the first time that I was like, wait, you get it? Like, you get it too. I'm not the only person. And then the second wave was right around March when COVID first started. So COVID to me has been the flood every time. And every time I'm like, oh, our cerebral spinal fluid's rising, and it's this lens within that I feel like this live is going to give everybody like the intel to be like, oh, that's what she's talking about, you know?
That's so funny as well. That's another like crazy synchronicity. I don't know if Darren's on here, Mr. Lightwork, but he's been one of my like closest friends for years and years. And when all of this was kicking off in my life, like I had a dream about him, and someone was telling us that the flood's coming. And I called him the next day, and I was like, dude, did you know like the flood's coming?
Oh my gosh.
He was like, what's the flood? I was like, I'm not sure yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, there he is. Hey.
Wow. And this, okay, so I spoke to Huna earlier, and he was saying that around a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, the blue tablets came online, and it replaced the emerald tablets. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what? And he goes, and it was just this rising. And it just so happened to be within my sky astrology alignment. Claudette was giving me some intel on my 888. I have this like 888 connection, 888 and 44. So he was telling me this rising, and I was like, oh my goodness, there's multiple of us that have gotten this, like this intel. It's like a part of our DNA. It's a part of our lineage. It's a part of who, like, our purpose here, like our divine assignment, you know? And I'm realizing, talking to you right now, that those of us who have gotten this are now finding each other, and like I'm sure you and Claudette are going to have all these connections. I can already feel it. And it's like our team is like, yeah, our team is like coming together, and it's beautiful because these tools, okay, let's ground this in. These tools right now are really helpful for Christmas coming right now. I mean, we've been going through this flood this whole time. To me, it's just building up and building up and building up. So what grounded, practical ways what can we do right now if somebody were to come to you and say, I heard about the Sacred Secretion, I know about it, what do I do, where do I start?
Okay, I would just say eat as naturally and like as simply from the natural resources that are here as possible. Like just limit all like synthetic foods, highly produced foods. Try and cut it all out as far as you possibly can. I mean, there's always room, like, you know, even if you go by like an 80% rule, like where you just, you know, you fancy something so you just have it, and then just forget about it, like it's a one moment thing, and then like start again the next day or whatever. Yeah, so definitely diet is number one. Number two, like, is some form of meditation, whether that is physical yoga, like it doesn't have to be, you know, some kind of acrobatic like thing. Have to be like highly flexible, just some like gentle like up and down cats, and you know, just stretching your body as much as you can, just to allow the vital fluids to be like really able to like travel around you and get to the places where they need to get to. And in terms of meditation, you know, yoga kind of is a meditation, because while you're doing yoga, you're thinking about breathing in with a spine flexation and breathing out with a spinal contraction. So without really knowing that you're in a meditation, you're in a meditation. So that's why for me, like, those two things go so hand in hand. But yeah, so diet, meditation, prayer, like, and by prayer I kind of just mean being open to hearing and talking to whatever your personal vision is of the higher oneness principle, like whatever you call it, however you see it. Like, there is no right or wrong, you know. Talk to it, like, think about it, like, say, like, you know, you show yourself to me, like, I would like to know you, like, how can I serve you, like, what is it that you would like me to know, you know. Just treat it as a friend, because, you know, ultimately it's the divine in you, like, it's in you, it's outside of you, it's through you. So, you know, talk to it like it's your like little friend. Yeah, so diet, meditation, prayer, I
feel like love.
yes.
I mean, I have a concept that you may love this. I went free diving probably like 5-6 years ago in Panama, and I was getting my diving certification. And something that she said, the instructor, was when people swim deeper and deeper into the sea, the ocean actually starts pulling you down to where you don't actually have to swim anymore. You can just fall down. And it's called negative buoyancy. So yes, we have to swim, make an effort, get through the depth. You know, it's not always easy swimming to the depths of ourselves and getting back into integrity. Let's be real, things come up and sabotage appears. But keep going, keep swimming, because you'll get to a point where you reach negative buoyancy. And that to me is where the waters start rising, and they reach a tipping point where it gets easier. It gets so much easier, and you don't have to try. And it's like I just got chills. It's like you're elevated. Yeah. It's like you're just elevated. And it's really interesting, because when I was going through this in my own life, I've had people tell me, you're so like you're not doing the work, you're not doing the shadow work, because you're always this like blissed out, you know, like they're questioning me, they don't get the innocence, they think that there's an agenda behind everything. And it was interesting because my shadow work was like, wait, am I not facing something? Like, why does it feel so easy when other situations it should be hard? And even getting into our car inception, I was literally like almost feeling shameful for not for getting high off of it, really.
Mm.
And you know, and then I started realizing that no, this is the rapture. This is that point of being able to transmute it. And it's not that I run from suffering. It's just more of like leaning into the shadow work and experiencing it in a different way. And I feel that when our waters rise, it just naturally is going to happen. And more of us are, Dan Winters is a great person to listen to on YouTube. He is just in depth, but he has this whole concept about the bliss plasma bubble. And you basically have a rapture, and bliss activates your rainbow body and, you know, everything. So yeah, I find that love, this is love.
Definitely, like it's probably the most, like, it's number one, you know, like what I said, like, are practical things that are gonna, like, you know, nourish your body and put you in a good place.
Yeah.
But love is definitely, you know, it's the compassion of Christ, you know, in biblical terms. It's turning another cheek, not because you're frail or weak, but because you know that almost anything you say isn't going to be helpful. Like, if that person's already in a place where they want to attack you, then they're already pretty low. So, you know, what is the point? Like, it's, yeah, I mean, I remember it's was it Thumper in Bambi who said, if you haven't got anything nice to say, don't say anything else. You know, like, literally, it's so simple, but it's so, so true.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, so everything relating to this process of the inner waters, um, can you share with everybody you have an app and you have the book, and then how else they could check your stuff out and learn more?
Yes, so my YouTube channel is called Kelly Marie Kerr. Um, and my book is The Goddesign, Secrets of the Mind, Body and Soul. My app is called Freedom Yoga, which is based on the teachings of the Essenes, who they're the immovable light race. Some people refer to them as the Anunnaki. There's lots of different, like, labels that they've been given, again, like, throughout the years, but like these are the basic teachings from, like, our, you know, most ancient of ancestors that knew how to take care of their light bodies and how to use them. I mean, you know, we're all magicians, really. We can all harness and use this light, but we need to be responsible with it. Like, we're not just going to be given access to it to just throw it around willy-nilly, and that's why love is such, like, a key thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hermetics as well, you know, like, what goes out comes in. So, you know, you can't expect to be this judgmental, critical person and then not back. Even if we're just judging and criticizing ourselves. Like, I used to be my own, like, worst critic.
Yeah, and I want to say something here too, because the Anunnaki, a lot of people know them as bad. And what I have found within my research, with the Christic spiral and the Christic code, when we're looking at our systems, there are good and bad of everything. And you'll even find bad things about the Essenes. You know, there's good and bad. And so when we put on our water lenses of what we are remembering and learning, you could say, be really aware of that, like good or bad label that might come through, because I hear a lot of people in our spiritual communities talk about the good and bad labels. But for me, I'm just looking for the intel
Yeah.
on, you know, what they were doing. And so some of this, yes, they do talk about it in the Kabbalah. It's really in so many ancient texts. And what we're doing is we're rewinding and remembering this divinity, and it's naturally birthing again. And something that has been coming through, and I just feel called to say this, is that we are essentially liberating ourselves from the moon matrix, you could say. You know, how we talk about when the moon is in our sun sign, yes, because our waters are controlled by the moon, and that relates to maritime admiralty law as well. But what's happening is that the moon, we're seeing the good side of the moon. It's like, yes, the moon can control us in one lens, but in another lens we can utilize the tool of the moon, and we can, so instead of giving it our power, we're taking that power back from it. And that's what I see the biggest message coming through about December 21st 2020, is this liberation of our waters, our flood of love. And this is us getting to know that and aligning ourselves with that flood that's coming, so that we can, you know, click into our octave, or, you know, this timeline splitting. And a lot of people are scared that a lot of people won't make it to, you know, the higher timelines. And that's why I want to bring that lens in, because whenever we're learning something new or absorbing something, it's really nice to know if your consciousness ever goes good, bad, good, bad, good, bad, because that's the programming of Lucifer, you know. And we're remembering so much of this is divine feminine, by the way. I just want to call that in, because a lot of the womb arts are based off of this distortion of the feminine and good and bad. And we're not good. We're not stuck in this dualistic consciousness. We're merging with it. That's what we do to do shadow work, right? We can't deny our shadows and say, that's not me, that's not me. We merge and we forgive our old selves, you know. And so when we integrate these fractured part of ourselves, these splintered part of ourselves, that some people will use the narrative or the story of, you know, genetic splicing and, you know, all these splitting, you can say, we're coming back to that wholeness. And so all of these lenses, a lot of people will bring in this bigger lens so that, you know, we can know the story of the Anunnaki and the stories. I say this because I get a lot of questions about the Anunnaki. And I say this because nothing is ever bad to me anymore. I'm telling you, this water lens, it's like merging with the so-called bad, and it's becoming one with it, so that it does not have power over us. And I feel a lot of us going through what we're going through right now, especially waking up to child trafficking and everything that's going on with the actual matrix.
Also, you know, there is definitely a trend that is so apparent that, like, a lot of the most beautiful truths have been demonized, like,
Yes.
to be almost unrecognizable, so that people are too fearful to go near. A lot of, like, my Christian friends, when I was even just doing yoga, were like, "Oh, you know, did you know that that's devil worship?"
Yeah.
So, you know, I totally agree with you that, yeah, and I love the way that you, like, articulate it. It just makes it so clear.
Yeah. Because I can feel the labeling, because I went through it. I really did. I mean, I was like misjudged. I judged myself for everything. And for my own healing, I really had to allow myself to not judge people who are really religious, or people who are not vegan, or people who don't live integral lives and pure lives in that way. I allowed myself to let go of that control of of labeling it as good or bad, and I allowed myself to see them as aspects of my splintered self. And I was like, whether you were an old me, whether you were a past life me, whatever you were, it allowed me to accept and to meet people where they are at and feel that love and compassion and that oneness. And I went through my own healing with my sexual trauma where I had to forgive the person who did it to me. And I was able to do that by not seeking revenge, by not being a victim, and by having compassion that they are me and I am them. I am not separate than anything, not even, yeah.
Yeah.
And
In when my dad was alive, our relationship was so like volatile. We were either like best friends or it was just crazy. And ever since like he passed away, like our relationship has been the biggest blessing, because forgiving him for the way that he treated like our mum, which was pretty gruesome. And you know, one of the reasons why I wanted so badly to hate him, you know, like a lot of people, like even my mum and my brother were like, why don't you hate him? Like, we hate him. And I'm like, I don't know, part of me does, but like, like him, I don't know, like, you know. And don't get me wrong, like I recognize that the things that he did were like not from a good place, and that I wish he had been able to express himself better. But forgiving is letting go of like the idea that it should have been different, because it had to be the way that it was for me to be the way that I am, for me to be like right here with you in this moment, you know.
yeah, and that's, go ahead.
Flaws in me and his goodness in me is that miracle that I need to fully manifest my spirit, like the I am, the je suis Jesus of I Kelly.
Yes, and that, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful, because the current moment, the current is in the current moment. This current that flows through us, God, divine, source, whatever your, truth is, in the current moment is where all things exist. All things, including forgiveness, including, maybe you're in a moment where you hate somebody, or, you're really frustrated with somebody that you love, and it's a toxic relationship. If in that current moment, there is so many possibilities within that current moment. And when you're in that current and you don't resist the current and you don't resist what happened in the past current moments, you are now not swimming against life. You are surrendering. Yeah, you are accepting fully. And that acceptance is the most liberating feeling, because you don't have to try so hard anymore, and you don't have to force it anymore, and you take responsibility, and I always say, we meet ourselves where we're at, we do what we can with what we have. And it's like this current moment is just such a blessing. Oh my
Yes.
gosh.
Yeah, that surrender. Wow. It's, yeah.
Even right now, and this is probably why this love wants to flow through right now, because right now is so, I mean, we are being tested to accept what's going on right now in society, in the world, and to be able to accept this and to love ourselves through it, and not project and separate ourselves from the system, because the system is a reflection of our own inner programming, implants, however you want to call them, and not separating ourselves from the evils. And it's almost like we had to wake up to the evils so that we could love and accept, not that we have to, contribute to it or feed it in any way, but accept and do what we can with what we have.
Yeah.
Wow.
Exciting.
It is. It
Like
is.
incredible to be alive.
Mm. I
Yeah.
know, I know. It really is. I had no idea we could go over an hour on these lives. So, yeah, I know. So, thank you so much for your time. This was just one of the most beautiful lives I think I've ever done. And you speak so beautifully, and it's such a blessing, yeah, to be in your presence as a reflection. And what is
Yeah.
your I find it so good that your Instagram handle is Seek Vision as well.
A massive like blessing for me. Like
Hmm.
a confidence boost. I'm like, oh, you're a reflection of me.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not in this alone. Like we are not crazy. We are not crazy. Yes. All
Yeah.
right, everyone. Well, you can find her at Seek Vision. I will put her Instagram handle here, and this will be posted, and I will save it as well. Thank you.
Amazing. Bless,
Yes.
peace, light, love,
Mhm.
and I
Yes.
don't know how to hang up, by the way.
Yeah. Okay. I'll exit it and then I'll repost it to my story.
Okay.